Welcome, everyone, to the Nerd Journey Podcast, episode number 29. We're going to be joining you every week to talk IT career, news, and opinions based on our points of view. I'm your host, John White, at VJourneyman on Twitter, joined by my co-host, Nick Cordy, at NetworkNerd_. Hey, Nick, how's it going?
Doing great, John. We are once again podcasting from the same place here in lovely Las Vegas. But we'll talk more about that later. I want to make sure everyone knows we're both VMware solution engineers looking to bring you the career advice we wish we'd been given earlier in our careers. We hope our career discussions will be relevant across disciplines and remain timeless. If you're enjoying our content, please drop us a positive review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you subscribe. And if you want to get in touch with us, tweet or DM at Nerd Journey. Ultimately, we're just two nerds on a journey.
A journey to virtual enlightenment.
So let's take a trip.
Great, Nick. As you pointed out, we're recording in the same room again for the second time.
Yeah.
Inside 30 days. Wow. Okay. I should explain that we're at VMware's Tech Summit and Worldwide Kickoff. And to be honest, at this point in the week, I'm exhausted. Just running on empty. How are you holding up?
Well, before I answer that, John, I think it's only fair to the listeners that we ask, how much swing dancing have you done this week in Las Vegas?
Oh, yeah, that's a very fair question. The answer is 0 because weekly swing dance in Las Vegas is on Friday at 8:30 p.m. in the Mint Tavern, and we are not going to be here Friday. We're here Monday through Thursday evenings, flying out Friday. So I didn't get any swing dancing in, but rest assured, I always look up where the swing dancing is in the city I'm visiting.
Nice. Yeah, I was pretty bummed about that too. I'll tell you what, man, I'm pretty tired. I think my tired might be tired, to be honest with you. And you know, John, you know how it's hard to work and go to school at the same time when you're in college? So I kind of feel that same way because I've been working all day, but you know, you're here, so like I am taking classes from the John White School of Mentoring in the evenings, so it's very helpful. And you know what, folks? If you want to be a part of that school, then just send out that tweet to @NerdJourney, and I can tell you all about the pricing and packaging. You know what's funny? We did the In Sickness and In Health episode. I think this one could be called In Exhaustion and Grogginess. We'll see if we can make coherent sentences. And you mentioned Tech Summit and Worldwide Kickoff. Every year, VMware brings the customer-facing sales and technical teams together for, well, I guess that's the topic of today's episode. Why would we do that?
Yeah, actually, why would we do that? I would have to say, like, the process of coming to the conference really made us think about the experience. So we decided to frame the discussion this way. Why would a company go through the process of having what's got to be a pretty expensive in-person conference? You know, what's the advantage to the company that's gained? And then, you know, at the same time, what's the implication and the disadvantage of being at an organization that doesn't do something like this? So that's the framing of today's topic. You know, company meetings, maybe annual conferences or internal conferences. Why have them, and what's missing if you don't have them? So with that in mind, let's maybe talk about the whys. The first thing, at least that popped into my mind, Nick, was that company meetings can be a talent showcase. So this isn't one of these meetings that's focused on R&D, but we do have one. VMware has an annual conference called Radio, which stands for R&D Innovation Offsite. And we bring the top engineering talent together, and we showcase innovative ideas. Now, you know, this isn't a VMware advertisement, but it's, you know, just one of the use cases for having routine or regular company meetings to bring people together. You say, hey, here's all the best performers, here's the top talent of the company, let's bring them all together. So that offsite in that meeting, I think it's over 1,000 people, but I think right now it's still less than 2,000. And there's a process to pitch a talk or pitch a poster with an idea, or, you know, hey, this is my idea. Here's what we'd do. Here's kind of how we'd implement it. It's just a sketch of an idea, using existing technology within the company. Here's what we would add. Here's a feature that we could come up with. So yeah, I think it's really interesting. A lot of the engineering leaders come together, and I think they rate the ideas, and it makes it to a next round of maybe becoming a product or a new feature that's implemented in our products. So it can serve to showcase all those best ideas and filter them to the top and give them visibility, right? So,
and a lot of those ideas come from within, as you know.
Yeah.
You hire people that are intelligent, and they can create things that are new and exciting and help the company be more successful. I've actually heard that it's really tough to submit something that gets accepted for radio.
Yeah,
I've never tried, but
yeah. So I think mostly it's people in R&D, right? Because they're closest to the internals of how things work, and you have to think that it's less than 10% of probably the R&D personnel. So yeah, I got to think that it's probably pretty hard, and it should be hard, right? You're getting a lot of visibility, and I'm sure there's some kind of contest, and the best idea is like move forward or whatever, right? So yeah, it's a really interesting process, but it really, again, it serves as kind of a showcase, right? So that's the whole point of having bringing people together to do that kind of thing. And I also think that it kind of serves as an innovation catalyst, right? Because you have all these really smart people in the same area, and there's the time that they're on and then the time that they're off, right? So then they're talking to each other and talking about their ideas, and maybe the ones that are still half-baked, and you kind of come up with maybe interesting new ideas, and the people who work in different business units talking to each other. So I think that all of those things are good, right? That can maybe inspire some new innovation, right? That wouldn't have happened if those people didn't get a chance to come together. And of course, like that process of maybe formalizing an idea to pitch, like makes you think through, your process and what you think about ideas and the way that you bring them together, and how you see what you're pitching moving forward. Like, again, it kind of crystallizes it and makes you re-examine. If you have to explain it to somebody else, then you have to go back and do a lot more formal statements about the basics and how you think you'd move forward. And
well, sure, because in this case, we're talking about ideas that probably affect our products,
right.
And innovation there. So you have to consider what is the innovation I'm suggesting? What's it going to do to either enhance this product or make something new? And what problem are you solving? What's the market need for it? All those things would probably have to be in your skeleton proposal.
Yeah. And I'm sure that when you're pitching a technological idea or a new feature, you probably don't have to do a bunch of market research, right? It's like an enhancement, but it probably would help to say, and this is directly linked to a problem that we would solve, right? Added value that we show to our customers, not, hey, wouldn't it be cool if? Although sometimes those, hey, wouldn't it be cool if ideas are great ones too, right?
Yeah. And, if you're at a different type of organization, you might have an idea of how to branch into a new market with services or whatever it is that company does. And as you said, the collaboration aspect, your idea may be half-baked, and then somebody else you collaborate with that maybe you didn't realize you needed to collaborate with can help you bring that to light and fruition.
Yeah, absolutely. Like just the idea of it really is very, very interesting, and it makes me think, of course that type of thing should happen, right? So the second thing that we kind of came to the realization about is that company meetings like this can help to communicate vision, right? So you and I got to hear top-level company executives kind of articulate their goals for the company and their high-level strategy to get to those goals, right? And then later on, we got to hear regional leaders, or specifically our regional leader, articulate their values and, their strategic vision, and how they took what they heard from the top level executives and applied it to, the region that we're in, and what they think, should be done. And then, earlier on, we got some technical vision too, right? So we came earlier on for something that we call Tech Summit, and that kind of filtered into, seeing kind of a technical vision forward, not just a whole company vision forward. So all of these things kind of, filter in, and you start to realize, oh, okay, so these people have an idea of what, where they want to go and how they're going to get there. So, to hear that articulated, I think really helps me as a frontline employee.
Yeah, absolutely. And in this case, we got the chance to do a different type of enablement from, say, some of the video training that we often do, or recorded training, remote training. And depending on your learning style, that could really switch things up and help it be cemented in your mind a little bit better. And you have the opportunity to go up to the presenter or someone else in the room and talk further about this idea and those what ifs, or, hey, how would you do this? How would you do this? And you get that instant feedback that you're just not going to get if it's delivered to you remotely or offline. So I really like that element. But I also used to be a classroom teacher, so maybe that's just me.
Yeah, I actually brought some of my big hairy problems that I was facing with my customers, and I chose the specific classes that I got to take, with those big hairy problems in mind. And it got me to see what, that technical vision, going forward was, right? So here's where the product is today. Here's our roadmap for the future. Here's where we're having some problems. Here's where we think things are going very, very smoothly. So all of those things fit together, and you get like just a better idea of what, the technical vision for a specific product or a specific business unit or a specific leader and their vision of their business unit, is going. And I think that's very, very helpful, right? And then again, filters down, maybe not at this specific meeting, but, later on, you can talk to product managers and they can say, well, the leaders had this vision of the product, and here's how we're getting there with our part of it, right? So it really did help to kind of set that vision for me. I don't know about you, but it definitely helps for me to be in the room with a person presenting. So they say something that triggers something in my mind, and I say, wait, are you saying A or are you saying B? And I can raise my hand and actually ask that question, and get that.
And it's your chance to really influence the execution of the vision. When we're talking about products, of course, oh, well, what if this? Or, I like that, but did you think about this? And sometimes the answer is, oh, no, we didn't. That's great. We'll take that feedback. Or, we're not really going to do that because of these reasons.
Right.
Or, we actually don't know.
Yeah, that two-way dialogue.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So, yeah, I think that to have those two meetings together, that was also really interesting, right? Because we had kind of a tech-focused meeting, so all the, as you pointed out, the customer-facing people with technical roles came a day earlier, and we got that tech summit part. And then later on, some of the sales and business leaders came in, and we got kind of joint sessions, and then split sessions, and then role-based sessions. So it was all really interesting, I think. And, it really made me think, there's a lot of investment in making sure that everybody understands kind of the tactical application of the vision statements that we got from leadership a little bit earlier on, to kind of integrate those two things, right? So, here's the high level strategy, the mid level strategy, and then maybe the lower level strategies, and then maybe the tactics and how you apply that in your day-to-day job is up to you, right?
Right. And learning those things and what you can do to help execute the strategy and vision at your level ideally makes you a more engaged employee, and you feel like you have a stake in the company's success more so than someone who didn't know how the vision applied to them or where they fit.
Yeah, definitely. And I've worked for organizations, other than VMware that had these kinds of technical summits and went out to communicate vision, and it is really, really helpful to hear from your leadership, hey, this is where I think we're going. This is the organization that we're in, maybe not writ large, but our small corner of it. This is what we're doing. This is what our goals are. Here's where I think we're going to accomplish them, where we're doing well, where we need work, and then get together and actually hash out how we're going to do it, right?
Right. And it's that process of continual improvement, because the vision and strategy changes over time as the company grows, expands, or pivots in a different direction. And that's for any company. So I've often wondered, if I were a C-level, how do I create the vision and strategy? I have trouble thinking at that level.
Right, yeah. No, it's a really good question, and there's a lot of pressure there, right? And of course you have a staff to help you, do that. But it's not a matter of like a bunch of people coming up with a bunch of options and then you just pick one, right? You actually have to have some ideas on your own and be opinionated, I'm sure, and then there's a lot of background that goes into that as well. So I don't always envy those people, right? There's a lot of people's lives that they're affecting, with their choices. So, there's a lot of rewards, but there's a lot of pressure on that too. And there's a lot of work that goes into it.
Oh, yeah.
And everybody at that level seems to have gray hair. That's not true. I guess it's not true.
What we need is a progression of photos year by year to see how fast the gray hair set in once they reached a certain level in organizations.
Very true.
I think that'd be fun.
Yeah.
But, this isn't a video show, so It's going to be tough to do that.
It could be really fun or an HR violation. One of those two things.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Anything else to be said before we move on from there?
Don't think so.
Okay, cool. So company meetings can also be a celebration of performance, right? And maybe a corollary to that is kind of set incentives to perform in the future. So, we were here with a bunch of salespeople. We got to see how the top achievers were celebrated, right, and rewarded. And I think, of course, that when you get a bunch of field salespeople together and celebrate some of them, it really anchors in people's minds that, they want to be in that group of top achievers, right? And you kind of get people to set high goals from themselves, not just to have them handed down from on high, right? So I thought that was, an obvious part of that, right?
And it creates a little internal competition because, not only do you want to succeed in reaching your goals, but you kind of want to beat everybody else too, right?
It's interesting that you say that. Almost everything that, I would expect it to work that way. I want to beat all these people. Almost everybody on my team expressed things like, I want to see more of us here next time. Oh, our team, we're so good, and yet we're, not necessarily achieving that, or we have so many good people, like we should make sure that, we need to all do what we need to do in order to get more of us here next time, or, more people to make the club level, right?
Yeah, iron sharpens iron.
Well, so the last part of that is we saw the incentives set, right, for we want some teams out there to achieve some big hairy goals, and here's what those giant goals are, and here's what the incentives are for achieving them, and they might have only been talking to a very few people in the room, but they wanted everybody to know what was possible. So that was an interesting thing. I'm not sure I actually agree with that approach, to be honest, but it was interesting to see.
Well, I think what you can also do, even though I think it's kind of human nature, as I said before, to want to beat everyone else, to talk out of the other side of my mouth it's actually really good. Oh, okay, these are the top performers, like best of the best. They're doing something right. What can I learn from these people to help me be better? Not necessarily so that I can be recognized like they are, because it's not about the award and recognition necessarily. I mean, we want recognition for our success, but what can I do to get better? These are the people you should go talk to because they've had some success. What are they doing that I'm not, that would benefit me in my career progression?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, I think that is a really nice positive spin. And we even got some of that, right? Mm-hmm. We had some of the top performers up on stage in the regional meetings, being interviewed by the regional leaders saying, hey, you worked on this deal. It went really, really well. Talk us through the process. Like, what were the nuts and bolts of how you accomplished this? And I'm sure it wasn't easy. Tell us some of the setbacks. Talk us through what you did to get through those setbacks and your thinking and your process. We want to know what it is that you're doing right and the best practices and take that and, spread it throughout the organization. So, yeah. And sitting on stage with the company's leaders and getting FaceTime with them and recognition, that's an incentive in and of itself, right? So I think that's kind of cool.
Absolutely.
Overall. And then finally, I think that company meetings can be a way to express company values and reinforce those company values, right? So I would say probably most major organizations, if you go to their website, somewhere there's a statement of values and, what they are and what they mean. I think something that was interesting that I saw was like how often they were referenced here, by the top executives, by the regional executives, and by, the frontline managers, right? Hey, don't forget, these are our values. And by doing that, they really set the tone, right? Because of these values, value A, we are doing this. Keep in mind that we have value B, and as a result, some of the things that we are working on are tinged this way, right? So it really sets the tone. And then, like, from, I don't know exactly how to say this, well, from a statement of values to the actual application of those values, right? Like, we saw one of our regional leaders get up and say, here's our company values. We've all heard them before. I really do believe in them. And here's kind of how I enhance them, right? Here's things that I also like to include in this and things that I, am working through myself and how I'm trying to apply these things. And that's very, very powerful. I would say that not all organizations do that, and to come to an organization that reinforces that, and makes me think, like, in any, a strong recommendation that I would make to, job seekers or career progression focused people out there, which is, the theme of this podcast, is that you want to find an organization that does this, right? Like that's been pretty important to me. And I didn't realize how important it was until maybe, this far into it.
Yeah, and the reason they bring it up so much is because they're trying to tell us that, okay, these things influence all of these decisions we just made to help you execute on what our plan was.
Yep.
And here's the proof in the pudding that we're going to do what we said.
Yeah.
And that it fits this model.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It is really interesting. Again, I don't want to be repetitive, but it was interesting how
but you're
often.
Going to be.
Yes, but I will be. It was interesting how often those values came up. In conversations and even in some of the individual classes, right? So, I said finally, but actually, I think we have one more, maybe a little bonus advantage here, which is in in-person company meeting situations, right? There's always the element of informal networking, right? People talking to each other, people from around the world, in our company's case, coming together into a single location, So people that you see that, maybe have moved and you don't live near anymore, and you get to, chat and catch up with them, like that kind of networking. I think it feels pretty powerful. I don't know what your experience was this week of that, but
Oh, absolutely. I mean, a lot of times people that are on your team and within your organization, they may not work anywhere close to your geographic location. So maybe you've only ever talked to them on the phone because you're fairly new to the organization. So you're meeting them in person for the first time. And there's something to that face-to-face interaction, John. If I had only talked to you on the phone ever and never met you in person, yes, we would have built a rapport, but if I met you in person, I think it's just that much easier for me to work with you remotely. Oh, okay, I've met them in person. They're a real human. They're not just a voice on the other end of the phone. The whole out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. Not intentional, but there's something to that in-person contact that even a video session can't duplicate.
yeah, I think it's really true. Like you get in the same room, you appreciate their whole body language,
Mm-hmm.
their sense of humor. Reading faces a little bit easier, and that person really in your mind, you're right, comes alive, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you get to spend like not just structured time like on a phone call, but unstructured time.
Yeah.
Sitting in a coffee shop, eating breakfast together, eating lunch, all those types of things. And I think that in doing that, again, like people become more real,
Yep.
right? And
Absolutely. And you don't always talk about work. Who is this as a person and not just my colleague? And that makes a
absolutely.
deeper connection. And, one other thing here, regardless of the size of the company, well, if it's a big organization, an in-person meeting like this might give you some proximity to managers of your department, managers of other departments that you don't get a lot of face time with. And that's important, not necessarily to suck up, but for your career. It would be good for me to know other managers, right? If I ever wanted to make a move or whatnot, I have a connection.
Yeah, absolutely. I got to talk to a lot of other managers within the organization and, get their take on things. And, I've been interested in, management as a career path. I think we've talked about it on this podcast about maybe interviewing, people leaders and saying, that's a career path that, our listenership might be interested in pursuing as a path forward. And to hear different people's takes on, making that decision has really helped me to kind of like, shape my thinking about that. And, maybe kind of feeling people out to be who would be a good guest, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, when I meet a manager, I always like to ask them, well, what made you want to be a manager in the first place? Would you share that with me?
Mm-hmm.
And most every one of them, oh, I really like this. I really like this aspect. So it's not like, oh, well, this was the only career path for me, so I'm stuck here. And
It was the only path forward.
And I think in small organizations, that's the way we end up thinking, especially in the technology profession, because who's going to be the highest paid person? That's the IT manager, director, CIO.
Right.
You just go up, up, up. They may not have someone who's super duper highly specialized individual contributor that makes that kind of cash.
Right.
It just doesn't happen. And when we're kind of in the realm of the large organization, but when we get to the smaller organizations, if it's not that many people, like I came from a pretty small organization to VMware. So an in-person company meeting means that, there aren't that many other people in ratio to the C-levels. I can just go up and talk to them.
Right.
It's not like here where you have thousands of people as a ratio to an executive, and they're going to be busy most of the time. At a smaller org, you might have a decent relationship with the CEO. They know who you are. They know what you do. That's not a bad thing.
Yeah, no, it's a very good thing to network up as well as, network diagonally and network sideways, right?
Hmm.
The different ways that we've kind of talked about it. And I think there's probably something there about meeting other people on other teams. I don't know if that pops into your mind.
Absolutely.
It's like, I mean, I've definitely talked to people on other teams, kind of in the same way that you mentioned. And it's like, okay, here's this voice on the phone, but, then you meet somebody and it's a little bit different, right? And you think of them maybe a little bit earlier. And
Yeah.
so again, like a little bit of that informal network that you're building rather than the formal, relationship that you have.
And I think it's interesting to talk to those people on other teams and talk about the ways you work together, the overlap in what you do and what they do, if there is some. I assume there is some since you work together. But how do they see the situation from their side? How do you see the situation? And, is there some way that you can do your job differently to help them be successful and you to be successful at the same time? And that's probably something you're going to be able to learn from them.
Definitely. Yeah. That's so powerful, right? That kind of the ability to hash that kind of thing out, like, over coffee as opposed to, over a telephone, right? So again, that more face-to-face time, but also informal time and unstructured time.
Right.
So did you have any strategies for doing that informal networking this week?
So, in my case, I had worked with a number of highly specialized folks that got involved with different customers, and I was able to leverage those resources to help my customers, but they were just a voice on the other end of the phone, and I wanted to meet them in person because we kind of felt like we had been in the trenches together. Hey, I just love to put the name with the face. And everybody I reached out to, whether it was text, email, was like, oh yeah, it'd be great. Let's find each other during a break time and just chat. And it wasn't that we talked about anything just mind-blowingly super important, but again, the face-to-face connection. Oh, you're a real person, and we've worked together and been through something challenging, and we were successful in the end, and I now have a resource that I have a rapport with, and maybe one of my colleagues internally might need to take advantage of that political capital that I have.
Right. Right.
So I can help a colleague on the team. Oh, well, you know this person? Well, I know this person, and they can help you solve this problem. Oh, cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So it sounds like, I would say, in like the manager tool terms, you're building relationship power, right? You're gathering those relationships and fostering them and strengthening them. I think for me, it's interesting because I don't think I ever set up any of those meetings ahead of time. Like the one thing that I did was I had a colleague who shared the same role when I first came on at VMware, and then he was actually from Norway, so he moved back.
Oh, wow.
A few months into my tenure. So, of course, this was a worldwide meeting, so he was in town, and I was sitting in the general session, and I saw a picture of him flash up on the slideshow, and I was like, oh my goodness. And then I emailed him, and I said, hey, I just saw your picture. Your customers still miss you, just so you know. Maybe let's try to connect. And then we ran into each other in the hallway. So it was terrific. And actually, as a corollary to that, like I do have like a tactic that I use, which is when I sit down in a session or when I walk into, a class, I always introduce myself to the people I'm sitting next to, if they seem open to it. Actually, even if they don't seem open to it, I still introduce myself, and then I just start talking to the people who do seem open to it. People in front of me, people behind me, and to each side. And so I was talking to somebody that was sitting next to me, and it ends up that she was from Norway too. And I was like, oh, do you know this guy? And she said, yeah, he's my manager. And so we got to bond over that. And it was, I said, oh, what do you know? The chances of two people who are both mentored by the same person, right?
Yeah. Now, since everybody had a name badge at this event, did you start talking to them before or after you sent your standard LinkedIn connection request to them?
No, actually, I completely didn't do that at all.
Oh, man.
I take that back. For the person who was managed by my colleague, I looked him up in the org chart, and then I looked down at the list of all his reports and found her and sent her a LinkedIn connection. So that was the one time that I did it. But I was pretty much slacking otherwise. I did run into somebody, my standard other tactic, which is sitting down at a table full of people that I don't know for meals and talking to them and introducing myself. And I ran into somebody who covers the same company, just in a different country. And so we chatted, and that guy actually reached out to me via LinkedIn. So,
oh, nice.
Yeah.
And we even ran into one of the tens of subscribers to the podcast.
That's true. I ran into 2.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay. See, I didn't run into any that I recall.
Okay.
At least they didn't say. I mean, I'm sure that thousands of people here listen.
Yeah, absolutely. The tens of thousands of listeners that we have downloading each week, I'm sure a few are actually at the company. No, so we actually ran into somebody who spontaneously started talking about podcasts, and then I said, well, actually, I do podcast, and he's like, really? I listened to a bunch of VMware podcasts on a recent trip, and I told him the name, and he's like, yeah, I think that was one of them. And then he pulled out his phone, and he flashed up the logo that your wife drew or put together, and I was like, yep, that's it. That's us. And so I that was funny. And then I did run into somebody who just happened to know you, and he's like, oh yeah, John White, Nerd Journey.
Nice.
Yeah, so
you're that guy, man.
Yeah, he did roll his eyes like that. Yeah, that is exactly what happened. Oh my goodness. Yeah,
we could talk about that all day. So, we talked about the why would organizations do these things, but what about the organizations that maybe don't have in-person meetings? And we tried to cover organizations of different sizes here.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're an organization, let's just say it's any size, why would they not have an in-person meeting of some kind?
Yeah, like what are they giving up, right? And even if it's not necessarily in person, if they try to do like a big annual meeting, and talk about some of these things, like I don't think the in person is necessarily as important. If you don't do it in person, then you're giving up a bunch of stuff, obviously. But if you don't do it at all, what are you giving up, right? So, I mean, we just talked about all these advantages that we saw, like talent showcasing, vision, celebrating performance, setting incentives to perform. Company values, expressing those values and enforcing those values and kind of, showcasing them, used in everyday life and interaction, promoting internal networks. Like all of those types of things are the types of things that you're giving up. You're saying like those are like we can't promote those things. We don't have the resources to make that happen, or they're not important to us, right? So as an employee, if you're at an organization that doesn't do this type of thing, I mean, I'll just pick one, right? Vision. Like I think that's maybe the most important thing that I got out of this, right? To have the high level executive vision, and then the high level executive strategy of how the vision is going to be accomplished, and then again that mid level or the next level down, how we're taking that vision, how we're shaping it for our region, and here's our strategy for accomplishing that, and then you eventually, it rolls down to you, right? So then you have this idea, and it's about what you need to do and why you need to do it. And so if that vision never gets expressed, then you have no idea like how what you're doing is affecting the goals of the company. And I think that's not good.
No, it's not good. And you may not be as engaged of an employee in that case if you don't know where you fit. And to your point, if you've never thought about this and never been through the experience of not really knowing where you fit, then you might not think that, oh, I should ask somebody that during the interview process and figure out, does the person I'm interviewing with actually know the vision of the company and the values? I'd probably ask that too. And where they fit, their department, whatnot. Can they articulate that in some way, or are they just kind of clueless?
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes it's not about like, do I have it at the tip of my tongue? But it's like, yeah, that has been expressed to me, and I feel like I kind of intuitively know what it is and kind of where I fit. But if you gave me an hour, I could, research it and, restate it more formally. Or, you know what, I really don't know, or that's never seemed important to me. Or, no, we don't really do that kind of thing here. Or, hey, we know what our team goals are, and kind of those are the most important things. Those are some answers that I would find troubling.
Sure.
And it's interesting because I don't think that I would have known to find them troubling except for the experience that I've had, right?
Right.
So it's really only clear to me now that those things are important, and why they're important. So
yeah, so another nugget for the listeners out there. For sure.
I think that the values, and maybe we've hit this a little bit too hard, but I'll just go back to it. Like, again, the way that the people at the top of the organization constantly refer to the organizational values, which, at least in the case of our organization, were not put together by those top executives. They were put together by a group of employees. So to have those like kind of restated back to me and integrated into the vision of like why we're doing this strategically, I think, that was important. And again, to have worked at organizations in the past that had no formal value statement, right? To organizations, I definitely have worked for organizations that had a formal value statement, but you don't understand how that's integrated into what the company strategy was or what your team strategy was, right? And it's lacking. But again, I think I'm only realizing that it's lacking afterwards.
Yeah. And, these things can be communicated very well at a big company or even a small company.
Yeah. Size of the company doesn't matter, right? It's like, do you have values? Do you live your values? Are you reinforcing what those values are to each other?
Right. And, if you're suspicious and you're new to the company, you're probably going to be sitting back, or one would hope, you'd be sitting back wondering, okay, I've heard this. Now, am I going to see this?
Right. Right.
And if I don't, then, okay, maybe it's time to find somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's probably a fair reaction, right? Is like, is this the one time a year that I hear about these values?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. I don't know if you noticed this, but, we had, I think we mentioned before, like, there's some top performers and they were invited up onto stage to, kind of give a talk and be interviewed about something. And one of the things that happened was very, very subtle, but as they were thanked, they said, hey, we have a donation for your favorite charity.
Yeah.
Right. And it wasn't, hey, congratulations on this big deal, and I'm handing you a check right here in front of everybody, to underline, what I want from people. It was like, we'd like to reward you, but we'd like to reward you in a way that aligns with our company values. Yeah. Right.
And I think I heard the people who were highlighted on stage most of the time said, well, it wasn't just me.
Mm-hmm.
It was a whole group of people that I worked with that helped propel me to here.
Yeah. In fact, it seemed to be like nobody didn't say that.
Right.
Right. It was very much a part of the culture to say, hey, I'm here, and part of this is you're recognizing me, but really what it is me here representing a team of people that accomplish this, because there's nothing that we accomplish at this scale can be done by one person.
Yeah.
Right.
And he did it again, folks. He said something I was trying to say way better. Did it again, John.
Oh, hey, that's just part of the job. Like a solution engineer, like somebody says something and then you say it back to them and they go, yeah, that's what I meant.
Exactly. Well, you sold me on that.
Right. Folks, you'll understand what's going on, right? Like later on when I'm mumbling something, and Nick just summarizes and I go, yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah, that thing.
Anything else, Nick, before we wrap up?
I don't think so. I think we hit it pretty well.
Cool. Great. It is now 1:30 a.m.
Pacific
time.
See, I'm living in the past now, John. You've always lived in the past, but I live in the future.
Right.
So for me, it's 3:30.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. It's a good thing that I drank coffee before this podcast.
Yeah, I found myself sipping down my second post midnight Diet Coke before we started recording. That was a brand new experience for me. Well, since I left college, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know that I like it. I don't know that I want to go back to this life. All right. I think that's it. Then we can wrap that segment. We didn't have anything else as far as topics go, and I think we're running a little bit long. So why don't we wrap?
Absolutely. A reminder, we want people to subscribe and give us a positive review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening. We want to know if we're being helpful and are always looking for interesting questions to ponder. We're collectively on Twitter @NerdJourney. And of course, another plug for the John White School of Mentoring. It's the best mentoring school out there. Contact @NerdJourney for pricing and packaging, folks. I'll leave it there.
Great. Farewell, listeners. Tune in next time as the journey continues. I'm John White @VJourneyman for Nick Cordy @NetworkNerd_. Signing off.
Adios.
Yeah, that's very, very true. Yeah, that sentence didn't make any sense. I'm going to have to take that again.
Okay.
Yes, indeed. No, that sounded so rehearsed.
I can't even look at you because I'm just going to start laughing.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Iron sharpens iron.
I don't know what that means. No, really.
Like if you're around a bunch of high performers, it's going to theoretically raise your performance as well.
Got it. Yeah. Although I still don't know what phrase you said that means that. No, really.
Iron sharpens iron? Like, because we're both good, we make each other even better?
Yeah, you explain the meaning, but I don't understand the words you're saying that mean that. Iron sharpens iron.
Okay, iron sharpens iron.
Oh! Is that a thing that people say?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll just trust you.
It's not like my Chow Yun Fat comment, okay? Like, this one's correct.
Okay.
I think.
Right. No, I understand what you meant. As Chow Yun Fat always says, iron sharpens iron.